Okay, so this is a TBF Expert Division. I'm back at it. This is the same kind of course, but run in reverse.
Good start this time.
Good start. I lined up at the beginning. It does a lot of fire road, but this time we have 2 new people with us. First, we have the pro national champ in cross country, Keegan Swenson.
Hey guys.
From Stan's pivot team, right?
Yep.
And then we also have Ryan Standish, pro mountain biker as well.
7th at national champion.
Atta baby.
Top 7, yeah. So
impressive.
I took this turn a lot better. I took that berm better.
Yes, you did. You kind of like how you didn't stop your momentum and then have to accelerate quite as much. But this time we're actually going to just focus on specifically, because you did a lot of things, basically all the takeaways that we talked about last time on how to start in the first 10 minutes really and how to treat that, you did really well with. So in this case, we're actually just going to look at, I'll call them pinches. I don't know if you guys would call them something different, but it's kind of like in a situation where there's rocks and it becomes a narrow line basically. And sometimes it's tricky and it makes you want to unclip, and then you end up half Flintstoning your way through something. It gets awkward and difficult. So in this case, we'll actually just fast forward and we're just going to hit on those key points to tell you how to deal with tricky little rock sections / rock pinches. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. All right, we're coming into the first pinch, and if you listen to your drivetrain, you start shifting down because you anticipate it, and you're coming into a section where it gets kind of awkward, right here.
Oh, yeah. I did not anticipate it.
Okay, let's rewind it.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it, and then I kind of like get freaked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You see it, and you're like,
Yeah, exactly. And that makes it worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
because you tense up a little when you
yeah.
And you're like, I forgot this was there.
But it sounded like you were in the right gear, like you shifted and put it in what you thought was going to be close to the right gear, correct?
I don't even remember.
One thing that
Sounds like.
So, and I'm going to pause right there. Okay, so one thing that I've found when we come into these sections, sometimes I shift down a little too much and I let my speed drop too much because I'm a little worried that it's going to get tricky. Yeah. So I slow down when many times like momentum is your friend. Through these things, right?
And I feel in sections like this too, it's always better to be in a gear that's slightly too big than a gear that's too small, because you want to be able to like kind of ratchet on the pedals and get something out of it. Whereas if it's a small gear, you're just going to blow through that and not have like.
And you end up with your pedal at the bottom of the stroke, usually.
And you want to keep your pedals flat and be able to angle them right to make it through the rocks. So if your pedal's at the bottom of the stroke, you're going to smash it on a rock.
One thing that I think is interesting on this too is if you look on the inside, you have big boulders and you're like actively avoiding those and you fall to the right to the safe side, right? But the tricky thing is it's a trap. So I'm going to rewind it just a little bit here. And if you look at it coming in, like the big boulders are on the left, so it wants to push you right, but then you've got those rocks and roots to deal with. So like there's this weird thing that happens with mountain biking sometimes where we kind of like get caught just looking at the things we want to avoid. And then those push us into actually like worse lines a lot of the time, when really all we have to do is look at where we want to go. Like instead of looking at not where we want to go, just look where you want to go. And then you'll be able to see like a cleaner line.
And I think looking at like the entrance into that, I think there was maybe an option to go a little wider, so you set yourself up straighter into it. Like if you had gone a little further left earlier, then you would have a even more straight line instead of turning as you're going into the...
You got caught up on the second big rock, it looks like.
Yeah. So there was like maybe 5 yards before this. Looks like there's a little more room to go left even earlier. And then you don't have any more turning to do once you're
just focused on going straight through the rock.
Yeah, okay.
Because going straight is easy.
Yeah, exactly. Also on sections like this, like it seems a little counterintuitive, but dropping your dropper post a little bit or all the way, like can sometimes be really helpful on technical climbs or technical flat sections. Like people don't realize it because you're like, droppers for going downhill. But dropping a little just allows you to maneuver the bike easier and throw it side to side. And then if you do have to like take a foot down and push through real quick, your dropper's down. That's a lot easier to do versus doing it all the way up. It's one less thing you can do.
That's a good tip too.
When you're rolling in at speed, drop your dropper just like even just an inch helps a ton.
Yeah.
So
let's go fast forward to another point. All right, so this next section coming up, guys, I feel like this is an example of when a trail is like armored, meaning that like man-made stuff is put in place. A lot of the time, once again, that kind of is tricky because we feel like we should ride that or we want to avoid it. It like really influences our line choice and we focus on it rather than where we want to go.
Yeah.
So we see some stair steps, right? And then to the left, a perfect line that you could have taken, but instead you have to turn right before this awkward pinch.
Yep.
and then you head to foot dab.
Yeah.
So let's rewind through that one.
Sorry, everyone behind me.
Again.
8 people behind me. Ah, gosh. Should have pedaled harder.
So first things first, it looks like you could probably even go left where the grass looks a little burned.
Maybe. Hard to say if there's like a hole between those two rocks though. And I think if I was like, I think Nate made the right call in going over those rocks just because it's more predictable. Like you don't know what that grass was going to be like unless you had ridden it the lap before.
Yeah, it might be
or
kind of
pre-ridden
boggy.
It could be boggy. It could be slippery. Like the armor, I think was the right call in that short section.
And then I feel like this is a
Oh, yeah.
big
Look at all
point
where the
here.
tires go.
So you can see like to the left,
Yeah.
to the left.
Makes sense now.
And also the cool part is like look up to where that crux move is. If you take those tire tracks, it's like really straight from where you're at.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise you have to bend. And then these are granite rocks too. So that doesn't really mean really good traction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be kind of slippery.
Pretty slippery.
And it kind of comes back to what we were saying on that last little pinch. Like if you don't have to turn, it's going to be better.
Yes. Yeah.
Unless there's obviously something big in the way, but
So if we play forward from there,
So you want to go straight through that dirt and you end up on these rocks here.
On the left side.
On the left side, and then you basically just go straight, and then those rocks like will set you straight up for that little crux move at the top, and you're going to be carrying more momentum and more speed, and not have to do this little jiggle like turn that you do here.
And that, right? So I would have been coming in straight there, and there's a little V.
Because right here, I mean, look where your tire's aiming. You're aiming the complete wrong direction,
you're in
and in order to make that turn, you're going to have to like lose all your speed, and you can't pedal through this because it's so chunky.
Yeah.
So before you'd be able to take 2 hard pedal strokes through this flat bit, and then just roll through that next little.
Oh, that's what I don't. I always try to pedal through these things. Should I try to pedal extra into it and then roll through it?
have
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
momentum into it.
Would I be unweighting any part of my bike, like to go over it, or just,
Maybe just the front for that little, you see the second rock there, it looks like a little bit of a stair step.
Yeah.
Like if you can, you might want to lift your front wheel from the bottom rock to the top rock. Just try and save some momentum and just try and be as light as possible through there.
Is this where you'd probably like at that point you'd probably start ratcheting too, Ryan? Like
You could ratchet there.
If you had to.
Yeah.
Ideally, you get enough speed up through this flat section that you don't have to ratchet through there, and you can pedal up top once it opens. You can see it opens up a little right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could ratchet if you needed to.
It looks so simple on video. Right, the second time, just go straight, Nate. What are you doing?
Just go straight.
And this is another example of like tight pinches like that. If you really have to put out power, it's just going to really affect everything.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to put that out when you're dealing with all the crazy twists and turns.
Yeah, and look at my watts right now.
Yep.
599. So
Yeah. You're putting out some power.
Yeah.
just going in the wrong direction.
So play through, and there we go.
Kind of got stuck, hiccup.
Sometimes that's actually not all too bad if somebody's really on your tail and you want to get them off.
Yeah, you can brake check them. I mean, another move is too, like if you know the section's going to give you a hard time, just get off and run it the next lap. Like you don't have to fight it.
It's
you know?
Yeah, it's better to get off before you
come lose all your momentum.
and have to like.
Here's the next spot. I made it finally in the last lap. I think I made it, or maybe last 2 laps, but.
How do I get over this? This way?
No, I did do it that time. Yay.
All right, so let's rewind that on this one. First of all, good job, Nate. Way to go.
I'm so happy I made that.
So you went left,
Mm-hmm.
and then it ended up kind of bringing you into like that notch to go over this rock, and then it left you with a really tight turn to do afterward.
Yeah.
But right now, the way I'm looking at it, looks like there's another line, right, Ryan?
I can see another line there.
I agree that.
Which one are you looking at, Ryan?
Far right. Through the, it's almost looks like a little single track compared to the.
This one right.
Yeah, right
there.
through there.
And then you would turn on that rock, like where it's hard packed, and you're not going to slide out because the rock is granite. So you turn on there and set yourself up for that next technical descent.
Or it might even be straight.
It might even be
going
straight
over.
after.
I can't remember what
We'll find out here
the
in a
rest of
sec.
it looks like.
You might not have to turn.
Oh
Yeah, so I mean, if
yeah.
you just look at the rock right there, that's dream traction, right? Because that's like rough granite. And if you were coming in with a straight line, you'd be coming perpendicular, almost perfectly perpendicular to your current angle, right? So
And then you would be set up to come out straight.
You wouldn't even have to turn on it. You would just go straight.
And if you look to the left, there's like a nice ramp down on those rocks because those are rideable rocks. It's smooth. It's nothing dangerous. And then you wouldn't even have to deal with the drop that you have here. If you're going really fast, you could probably carry from the drop over this little hole that you drop into. But if you just stayed left, you could kind of just roll right down. It makes like a scary feature an absolute non-feature. You know, it's pretty cool. But Nate, good job on doing it.
Yeah.
Made it down.
Nailed
That's
it.
what matters.
Let's fast forward through to another section. Okay, this is an example of a situation that's maybe not too technical, but it actually proves true for the last one too. Rocks are not necessarily what you want to avoid at all times. So you go up this draw. It's bumpy, rough, sucks your power out, and slows you down.
Yeah.
Let's rewind.
Did I hear you say a terrible line?
I did.
Yeah. so you knew
You
it.
knew it. Yeah.
So I'm going to pause right there. So like a lot of the time when our minds see rocks, we think we should avoid them. Mm-hmm. But this is even something that when we did our North Star Enduro World Series race analysis with Richie Root, I realized that he just sees earth. He sees surface. Like he doesn't see rock and
Obstacle.
dirt and obstacle. Like he just sees like the surface that he wants to go on, and he defines whatever that line is. And in this case, I bet that rock isn't too bad to go over. And instead, what you end up dealing with is kind of like a trench. And one of the things that I think about when I show up to like a venue is I think like, what does the dirt do when it rains here? And if it gets really trenched out and it has like a weak composition, it gets ruts. I know that when I'm in any situation where there's a fall line and I'm riding directly up the fall line, chances are the lower portion of the trail is going to be trenched out like this, right? So if you haven't reconned the course or haven't been able to check it out, it's why you want to stay high in a lot of these situations to avoid rain ruts. Because this rain rut really sucks your speed out.
There's even a little
even
path
a little-
to the right side.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you have to go over the rock.
Yeah. So but once again, you kind of have to like change your brain with that, right, guys? Like,
You know what it is the rider in front of me took that same line.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
naturally just took that same line.
think
I wasn't
that's
looking.
That's the hardest thing in racing is not always following the person that's in front
It's
of you.
hard because sometimes you just want to go like turn your brain off and you're just following whatever they're doing, whether it's right or wrong. And
You trust them. Like,
Yeah.
oh, they got through it. So I'm
Yeah.
probably going to get through it, but it's not
Yeah.
the best line.
yeah, you kind of have to. I refer to that as like seeing through the race. Like
Yeah.
you have to like take a step outside of your current situation in a race and always think about like optimizing, always being better rather than just going with the flow. Let's go to really, I think, just a couple more sections. This is going to be a good one coming up here. Okay, the next one we have is like another little kind of notch or pinch that ends up biting you. So we'll just watch it through for the first time.
whoa, hold on.
Let's rewind.
I put a foot down. I didn't fall.
Okay, so coming into it right here, you're on the tight inside and you have a right turn coming up, which is usually not ideal, right? You don't want to, if you can, you don't want to position yourself inside, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like position yourself wide. I know, Keegan, you ski raced when you were a kid, and that's like just all that sport is line choice, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So in this case, do you guys see other options where you would position yourself here rather than where Nate's at?
Potentially going off those two rocks right to the left,
Right here.
right a little more like
Right
right
in the
there,
pinch, right in between them.
right in that little crack there. But it really, I mean, it's hard to say from this view because you don't know what's on the backside. Another option is you could have came over to the left a little more and taken your same line, but then you've been set up better for it.
To the left a little more.
Like right
meaning,
there.
like through this line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that could also be an option because right now your about is like you're just going to T-bone that corner.
That's what
and
I
you're
did.
going to lose all. You're going to lose
Yeah.
all your speed.
And a lot of racers that I saw, they would actually go way far left off camera, kind of like the climbing line if you're going the
Yeah.
opposite direction. And they would come out right with me every
have
time,
all the
except they would
speed,
have
yeah.
momentum, and I'd be like 600 watts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's fast forward just a little, or move forward just a little bit. So right here, now we can kind of see what's on the backside of those rocks.
You could totally go right off in that middle bit, right
Yep.
through there.
In between that first
That
line
would
you
have
were
been the
talking
best
about.
line.
That would have been the line. Yeah.
Because
off of this.
with your bike, we talked about this with like Lee McCormick. You kind of like your arms, your suspension when you go off of a drop. And if like that drop is longer than your arm, then yeah, chances are you're going to have some speed so you can actually jump off the thing. But you could even roll that with your bike, which
Yeah.
you
You
wouldn't want
definitely
to.
could press it.
Yeah.
Yep. And you could just go right over that thing. And then the line that you were talking about, Ryan, which actually you did something pretty good here, Nate, I think, with riding on the side of these rocks a little bit. Like you kind of like shifted a little left to ride the shoulder of the rock that you can see in like the middle or the left third of the screen.
Not on purpose.
Right through there.
Yeah, instead of dropping down through the trench.
But that was
right?
better than going in the trench. Because
Yeah.
you know those rocks are going to have traction. At least it set you up a few inches better for that turn. Because if you got in the trench, you would have gone like this and then just straight that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Even worse.
Worse.
So in this case, the tricky part is, and I'll fast forward a little bit, you set yourself up here and it's kind of cool because you almost like ride off of these rocks as a berm, but then there's something in the grass. See that little rock on the inside? You were kind of set up so that you could roll off and hit that line right there, but I think that rock made you hesitate. And then what that did is that pushed you to the far outside of the trail where there really wasn't a natural berm to the trail, and you had to make all of your turn in that one little spot.
I was also weighted back still here, and I didn't have any weight on my front tire, and that's why I slipped.
So you had no traction on the front wheel,
exactly.
so you couldn't turn. Yeah.
Let's play through it one more time so we can kind of see what it looks like at full speed. So I definitely think the line that we talked about of going in that notch of rocks to the outside would be best. And there we go.
You almost made it too. Like if you wouldn't have slid out, that wouldn't have been a terrible line.
Yeah.
And I think it did look like it was that little rock that you saw on the inside of the corner. It scared you, and then
It's
you,
like a pebble.
pushed out a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to one more. All right, so you've just gone up like a steep climb, a little bit of a rolling descent, but you're still pretty blown from that effort. And now we're going to start dropping into some rock gardens. So you roll through there, probably could have taken a more straight line, do that one. But then we're going to get into like the actual proper rock garden coming up here. We'll just roll through it this time. All right, now let's rewind it and step by step. Right here, let's just look at where you're pointed and what you have available to you. So like it definitely seems like the predominant line is where you're going. It kind of like the surface even wants to drag you down to that because it's kind of like off camber down to that. But looking to the left, it looks pretty smooth, and it looks like you have a lot of choice.
If you could get over there.
A lot of people go left on this.
Yeah.
And if you look at this turn that you hit right here, you have the chance to reposition your line. So right here, it's like choose your own adventure. Like the whole thing's opened up back up to you instead of going straight down. And if you look to the left, it ends up being really smooth, and then it actually makes it so that you could have taken a straighter line going through this entire rock garden, but especially coming out.
And there's like a little berm down there too.
Yeah,
that I
sweet looking berm.
Could have went on.
So right here, that big redirection that you had to do, if you had positioned yourself outside, you could have pinned it through this section down below, or even just come across where you are right now.
If you'd redirected yourself earlier, then you wouldn't have had to make another redirection because you could have hit that catch berm up top, made a harder left, gone a little further across, and then you would have been going straight the whole way down instead of having to turn part way.
And at the bottom of this, I had to hit my brakes at the bottom because it was too tight of a turn at the bottom of this rock garden.
There's also like another line because at least where we are right now, it looks like you're repositioning to go the right line. But there's also one just off to the left of your tire, which would have been straight from the line that you were already on. If you had gone down low and then you'd come across kind of almost straight
I
through
would have
that
come
corner.
through here, right?
It looks chunky, but you would have been able to carry more speed.
Yeah, and it's not that chunky.
Yeah.
I could
Because
have
then you pretty
straight
much
onto
cut
this.
that corner is no longer a
corner,
a sharp corner.
Yeah, it's just a straight.
One way to think of it is like minimize your your directional shifts. Like if you have to do 3 of them in a section like that, that's time lost for sure. But then the other thing too to think about is if you can pack your directional shift into one up at the top and then just be straight coming out, that will allow you to get more momentum through the section because you have more time downhill with less brake.
If you watch it, you see like these like jerk things that I do. I like do jerky motions,
like
and those are those
triangular.
redirections you guys were talking about.
Yep.
I keep
And it kind of feels like that's the line that you knew or that you'd ridden before, so you always wanted to try and ride that one.
That's exactly what it is.
Like that's what you felt comfortable doing. Yeah.
So like, and just hitting on that one more time, it's so important to do the directional changes up high on a descent rather than down low. Because if you do it down low, you bleed off the speed that you could have earned with that descent. If you do it up high, then what you can do is you can carry that straight line speed throughout the whole thing and maximize all the benefit you can get from that.
Cool.
One more, a bonus round, if you will. Okay, so we're coming back in on the next lap through this section, and check it out, Nate. You do the right line.
Follow someone.
But then...
You still didn't set up enough for it.
Yep, and he gets hung up. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, and we'll rewind back to the beginning of this one, is when you come into sections and you have a rider in front of you and you aren't necessarily confident that they'll be able to make it through, you just don't know, it can be a good idea to sag that section, right?
Yeah, like give him I would double that amount of space you had for him, and then you could have still ridden up this next section, and And even if it's someone that you trust, I'd still give them like a little bit of space, because you never know, like they could just be tired and turn into a rock and have to
here
unclip.
I went right because this rider's
Also,
right
yeah.
there, and I was like, because that would be the better line, right where his kind of front tire is.
Exactly.
I think I would have hit him though,
Yeah.
which is
That's his fault, right?
Yeah. Teach him to stay on the side of the track so close.
Yeah, we should probably advise in that regard. Like if you are off the course, especially in like
Be
a
way
technical
off.
section, be off the
I will
course.
give him kudos though for getting his rear wheel off, because a lot of times people just pull their front tire
And
off,
they don't
and
think
then
of the
you'll
back.
clip their rear wheel and they'll just drag it into the trail.
Yes.
So at least he made a pretty good effort.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just like a sag climb, like sometimes with tech sections, you want to sag it a little bit just to give yourself some room to be able to accelerate into them. And
ride your own line and not be dictated like by the person in front of you.
Except when the person in front of you shows you the
Good
good
line.
line.
You still would have seen that line.
yeah.
So
And that person had to pedal really hard through that section, didn't have a lot of momentum. They had to bob or they had to stop and dab a foot.
So if we go back, just following this line from like right here, I should be hitting it hard
and
Going
swing
straight.
up onto the grass almost right there.
Yeah, and then go
A little
straight
bit
through
further.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just make a teeny turn at the top.
Yeah.
Right there.
And do more power lower so that you have more momentum for that pinch at the top.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's been great.
I want to do
Yeah, it's
races
fun.
again now.
Hopefully this helps everybody with some good tips for rocky sections and pinches with two pro mountain bikers. Pretty darn sweet having you guys here. Thanks, Keegan and Ryan, for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And,
Yeah,
and
thanks.
also, I know this isn't timely because who knows when you're watching this, but happy birthday, Keegan Swenson.
Thanks.
Pretty
Oh, it's your birthday
Right.
today.
Today.
Oh,
We're close. Yours
Happy
tomorrow.
birthday.
I'm today. It's a good month for it.
All right. So thanks, everybody. And if you have any questions, you want to get faster, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're constantly posting videos on how to become faster. And if you want to find out how to become faster and get some of your coaching questions answered, listen to the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast, trainerroad.com/podcast, and go to trainerroad.com and sign up. Talk to you all next time.
Thanks, everybody. If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.